talk about your vision of what an experience is going to be like for a person that needs to go to the doctor, needs to go to the hospital. What's that experience, do you imagine, going to be like 4, 5, 6, 8 years down the road? And also folding into that, what effect is this going to have on the medical community? As Larry said, doctors that are losing money with every patient that come in, it would seem like they're not long for this world.
It's going to be short, I can tell you that much. I don't see physicians, and I've read and seen several interviews with physicians that have decided this is a good point for them to end their careers, whether it be prematurely. Some of them have mentioned, there's one in particular I heard about in Texas that admitted that he'd been operating at a loss, as Larry alluded to, for over 3 years. And he just said that I don't feel like doing it anymore, especially when in his mind, which I thought was a testament to him, it wasn't the money aspect of it, it was I'm no longer able to offer the type of care that I decided I wanted to offer when I became a physician. And that's where I think you're going to see a system of physicians. And as you have these networks potentially become more of an issue and who participates in what network, you may end up with I don't know if I would say it was unintended, but potentially unintended tiering of care, where if you have folks that are only accepting individuals that are coming through the exchange or Medicare or Medicaid, as Larry alluded to, you really are going to have a certain level of care that can be provided, and that's it, because as Larry mentioned, you're not making any money. So who is willing to have a practice primarily of those type patients versus at this point there still isn't going to be an individual in a group market with potentially physicians that are going to be contracted with that are still getting a rate that they feel like they can provide care to their patients. So
what that means then is there's fewer doctors. That means in a town like Dalton, we may have to go to Atlanta to get treated. Is that the case? And what does that mean? People will be sicker?
I think we're seeing examples of it now. Charles Oliver in the Daily Citizen has a column once a week where he pulls together interesting facts, and he's always been including one or two examples from the British healthcare system of people waiting years or the terrible care that's being delivered. We're headed for a British system, and our Canadian brothers, they have to use their system. They're not allowed choices. So where have they been coming? Well, those that can afford it have been coming to the United States. Well, if we're forced into this government system and that's your only choice, that means people who can afford better are going to get their medical care outside of the United States.
Is that the case here, that we will not be able to, pay as you go with a doctor if we so choose? Is that a limitation on this system?
That's my understanding of the end game.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know that ACA has a restriction on that, but as Larry alluded to, you really can't have a single payer system and typically allow for that type of service. We're seeing now that physicians, we have examples of it here in Dalton where they charge an annual fee to get access to them. And basically the proposal is that I'm your physician, you have access to me, not 24/7 in particular, but close to it.
And there's no insurance.
No insurance for that piece of it, but you still would have the insurance for anything that's not charged by the doctor. In other words, the doctor's time you're paying for up front is a concierge type service.
And that would lower his cost because he doesn't have all the paperwork and all the regulation to deal with?
Well, what it really does is lower the amount of patients he has to see to generate enough revenue to run his business. And that's the ones I've talked to. So their goal would be to have, it sounds like a large number, but it's not. I've heard them say, if I could have 300 or 400 patients, that would be great, which is scary. I've never asked them, well, how many are you seeing now? So If they can 300 or 400, apparently is a reduction from what they're seeing now, and they feel like that would be a number that they could provide the type of care they want to provide.
But that's not something that has a long-term future?
I don't know if I don't think so. I don't know that that's something that I can make I can make a prediction on, but at this point, I don't see that being something that we most likely would have.
Now, I've been told, and Larry, you alluded to this earlier, that the stars have to align perfectly for this thing to work out. There is several agencies, the IRS, the Social Security Administration, even Homeland Security is going to have to play their part in this thing, and coordination basically is not the government's forte. You alluded to that earlier. The system sounds like, even if it worked, it would be unwieldy, given the fact that, as you mentioned, the Veterans Administration, and look at the post office. I mean, the fact of this thing working and the stars aligning would seem to be pretty remote. What's the best thing we can hope from this, given all that?
I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. It just doesn't look good.
I mean, I think there's continued attempts. I mean, obviously, I can't remember how many times the House now has voted on repeal. And sometimes, this country real good at having to wait to fix things until they're broken. Well, this hasn't officially broke yet. It looks like it's going to break. It's falling. But maybe at some point when it does break, we'll do something else. The latest thing that I've heard just in the last day or two, that as we have the looming debt ceiling issue coming in this fall, that there's some fairly influential Republicans are trying to get a letter sent out to Harry Reid to basically say, we're not negotiating increasing the debt ceiling unless you repeal this thing. I think it's a last-ditch attempt, and I don't see it being very successful. But my point is, you're going to continue to see that, I think, for quite some time.
And they're trolling for votes now on both sides of the aisle,
Yeah.
I think, for that. Just to sum up, what's your biggest fear? Each of you. Larry, let me ask you that first. You probably have to sort through all of the fears to find out which is the bigger, I suppose.
You're talking about the largest fear in terms of this medical system.
Yes.
Well, that we're going to take one of the finest healthcare systems in the world and turn it into what we're delivering to our veterans through the Veterans Administration.
I think something similar that Larry alluded to really earlier is that the deterioration of the willingness of folks to want to strive to have that type of health care, to purchase that type of health care, where really the incentive is we're going to get the same level of health care and we're going to get a quality that that's lower than we're used to, and it's going to be delivered regardless of whether you have claims, don't have claims. We for years have promoted products that really align incentives with folks to be healthier, because that really is, the whole thing about healthcare reform that to me that we've missed the boat on is we've done nothing to affect utilization of this. If anything, we've created artificial demand for it. Because of the way we've developed this system, we'll be able to enroll with pre-existing conditions, wait till you need it. We've really created an increased demand. However, we've done nothing to try to limit the use of healthcare and how to get people healthier and to be more educated consumers of healthcare. And that has taken a 180-degree turn in the wrong direction. And that's my biggest fear, is that that's going to, ultimately be the demise of any system we have. Is no matter, you can switch the dollars around as much as you want. When the demand gets to the point we can't afford it, what are we going to do?
Well, not being able to afford it, this is going to be a heck of a burden, it sounds like, to the taxpayer and the insured.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Now, you're an insurance agent. I would think your future would be somewhat in doubt.
I think the way we handle our business is what still is probably the biggest portion. As an individual agent, and agents all throughout the country are going to have to make this decision. Do we want to deal with these exchanges, these marketplaces? I've dealt with insurance companies for a long time, and I've read articles that are viewed slightly better than oil companies. But nothing is viewed as negatively as dealing with the government. rightfully so. And so, can we effectively and efficiently deal with a governmental entity and still be the best way for us to spend our time on a daily basis? I don't know the answer to that yet. May not know it in the next 12 months, depending on how many things get delayed and pushed back. So that's probably the biggest area of doubt with us is, are we still going to be dealing with the same folks, and if so, in the same capacity?
I gotcha. Let me ask each of you, just to sum this conversation up, realize that we're really talking to small business people, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and others, and just to wind up the conversation and what your advice would be to them.
Well, I think they need to be meeting with their insurance agent to see what their options are. Right now, it appears for the next 15 months the best thing to do is stall by maintaining your insurance policies, getting an early renewal that will allow you to carry through, and continue to put pressure on your elected representatives that this is a disaster.
That's excellent advice.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree that at this point, the fight's not over. I mean, the law looks like it's coming, but hopefully as a country we're not going to accept what we've been laid, in front of us. And then really, which is just a general plan that we use with a lot of our clients, is we want to prepare for the worst, which a lot of cases means stall. Have an option out there that you can have as long as possible, and hope for the best. In other words, we don't know what the increases are going to be. We can tell people generically, based on your demographics, you're probably going to see a big increase, or you may not because you're a group that's older and sicker, for example. So have a plan in place that's going to get you through the beginning of this year, and then let's see what kind of options you have once we see if the exchanges are up and running and these rates are filed and approved in the state of Georgia. And that's really all we can do at this point. As Larry said, we hope to know a lot more as early as a month from now, but frankly, I would have thought we had known a lot more this month than we did 6 months ago, and we don't. So.
Very good. Well, gentlemen, I really thank you for joining us. It's been very enlightening, very scary. Very good. Thanks again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Larry Winter and Scoggins CPAs, and Brian Peters, Advanced Insurance Strategies. And this is Talk Floor TV.